Welcome to Résumé Storyteller with Virginia Franco, bringing you interviews with industry experts and regular folks who tested the job search waters and succeeded, and strategies to tell your story and land you job interviews in 60 days, guaranteed. Here's your host, Virginia Franco.
I am super excited to welcome Marie Segal to this podcast. As the founder of Segal Coaching, she's worked with hundreds of attorneys, executives, and entrepreneurs on career transitions, advancement, job interview prep, leadership, and personal branding. She is the author of Master the Interview, a guide for working professionals, and Know Yourself, Grow Your Career, the Personal Value Proposition Workbook. Marie is a career changer herself. She was admitted to practice law in New York and Connecticut, holds a JD, an MA in art history, and a BFA degree. She's also certified as a career management coach and a professional resume writer. You can learn more about Marie through her website at annemariesegal.com. Marie, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hi, thank you. Glad to be here.
So I just let off with that bio, but I'd love to hear from you. Can you give us a quick overview of what you do and your role?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm a career and leadership coach. Sometimes people use the term executive coach. I work with people who are in transition, but I also work with business owners and entrepreneurs who might be CEOs trying to sort out how to run their business, work with employees. Many of my clients are attorneys, but I have a couple of different areas outside of the law in which I practice as well, some of which is from my own background. I was in finance as an attorney, and my husband's an engineer, so I've learned through personal experience how that works.
Yes.
He is now working at MasterCard, so some of the overlap comes from that tech background that he brings. He's a data analytics guy.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Complete polar opposites.
Yep. The marriage
there you go. How did you come to be in this role? Tell me. I don't really know much about how you got here.
Right. So when I graduated law school in 2000, it was about when the coaching industry started. So I didn't really know coaching existed at the time. It certainly wasn't a career option people considered. I was at a large firm in New York City, moved in-house. I had my own solo practice for a while, and I was also in a smaller law firm as a partner for a short time. And during that time, I kind of tested the waters of different ways that my career could work as an attorney. Wanted to tweak and see where things could go. And I found that the process of thinking about yourself and what you wanted out of your career was a very fulfilling thing for me to do. And at the time that I was a solo practitioner, I joined a mastermind group. It had some coaches in it, one of whom is my friend Donna Swaden, who you may know, Virginia, who allowed me, we first bartered for services. I did her trademark, and she gave me career coaching services for my husband. He found a job right away, so I started working with her. And through that process, and she allowed me to shadow her, I realized that my values had shifted. What I was interested in helping people with had shifted away from the legal technical problems and more into this area of what we do. So that's kind of a brief overview of the transition.
Excellent. And that's a whole another podcast that I'd love to discuss with you about how to make the transition, because a lot of people want to do it and they don't know where to get started. But so you work with all sorts of folks. What do you see as one or two of the biggest challenges that are facing people that really do want to test the job search waters or make a career change?
That's a great question, Virginia, and I'm sure that everyone has a different answer. What I would say is it's twofold. One is information overload, and the other is the prevalence of the ATS system. And I'll explain that a little further. There's so much information online. There's so many opportunities to apply for jobs. Everything has become so automated that we get a sense that we're being productive even when we're not. That's the information overload piece to some degree. We're bombarded with opportunities, and it's very hard to sort out. And because of the applicant tracking system software system, however it's called, what we actually consider our value proposition or what we most add to a job isn't always, quote, scored, because a lot of it is done through a computer algorithm first, and then a person actually looks at it. So that is a difficult hurdle for job seekers today that didn't really exist as much in the past.
That's a good point. And you do bring up a good point about how you could spend hours applying to jobs and you feel like you're making good progress and some headway, and you might not be.
Right.
So,
and I can attest that I did that myself at one time.
Yeah, same.
Before I knew that.
And maybe we just answered the question, but what do you find that your clients are surprised by during this process?
So it is a kind of the other side of the coin of what we were just talking about, and it's the importance of networking. We talked back in the day about it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's so true even today, although it's democratized in some way. We all have, especially with LinkedIn, more opportunities and more access to more individuals. We never had that in the past. You could never look up someone's bio and really understand, oh, we went to the same school, we both like baseball, whatever it is. But again, there's this information overload. There's so much out there that you still have to sort through it and figure out how to best network in a way that works for you. But that, and I'm sure you've seen the same statistics, that's the key to job search. 80% or so of jobs are through networking, not through the ATS system, not necessarily through, any of those traditional means of applying for jobs.
No, yeah. I agree. And when you think about it, if you've got a job opening, the first thing you're going to do is not say, let me go to HR and make up a job description and figure out the scoring.'re going to say, well, who do I know?
Right.
And who can fill this role? So it makes common sense. But I think to your point, because of the information overload, you can lose sight of that. So in terms of, when your clients are thinking about a career move, what's the best advice you give them? And maybe it's in terms of networking, or maybe it's, something else.
Well, so if they're already my client, they've done the first thing, hopefully, which is to really start to think strategically, because that's something I emphasize over and over again with clients. And it goes to our point about not wasting time, not feeling like you're just moving the ball forward, but actually moving the ball forward in a direction that's logical, that makes sense, that's organized, that will be producing results. I'm all about ROI, return on investment, and it's the return on investment, not just of your money, but also of your time. The other piece is to start early. So if you're thinking of moving a year or two from now, and I have clients who are already starting to work with me because they know they want to move. I have one guy, I want to move within 1 to 3 years because he's in the private equity space and he knows, what he's working on has a half-life, as they say, and he's looking ahead. So people who are able to say, I'm in pre-launch stage, which is what I've started calling it, pre-launch for a business, pre-launch for a job search. I know I'm ready to move. So what do I do now to get ready? Or even pre-launch to returning to the job force after a break.
Do you find that, and I've heard this where people say, well, I don't want to start just yet because what if something comes up before I'm ready to go? How do you recommend people handle that problem? I mean, it's a good problem to have, I think. But
right. What do you mean by comes up, though? Mean like an opportunity internally?
So if an opportunity comes up before you start too early, and then maybe you start feeling
you waste time,
opportunities that you're not ready to leave. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they get something, but they didn't really want to move. Right. Well, yeah.
It just happened before their timetable.
So when I talk about starting early, I don't mean starting full force with the job search early. I mean opportunistically looking, setting yourself up, building your network. As I said to someone this week who was asking about her husband's company has a reorg going on and there are layoffs. And she said, he's fine, but he's worried. So we'll tell him to reach out to his network now, because if in 6 months he's starting to look for a job, it won't be, oh, Fred hasn't spoken with me in 10 years. Why is he calling me? Or 2 years.
Get your network in place, get your social media.
Figure out what you might want to do next. Start retooling if you need to build a skill set that you don't have. Whether it's anything from social media to cybersecurity to whatever it is that, you need to do in order to get yourself ready. That's why I call it pre-launch, right?
Okay. So then what advice do you give to someone who's post-pre-launch and they're actively looking, they're engaged in a job hunt, and they're not having luck?
Wait, let's back up for 1 second before we get to that, because there's another important part about when you said if something comes up. If you start your job search and your dream job falls in your lap, you haven't wasted time building this network, because nowadays we often keep jobs 3 to 5 years. The 20-year job is really a rarity. So the skills that you're building for your job search, you will have in the future as well. The network that you're building will be there for a soft landing later. So I don't think of any of that time as being wasted. But on to your other question. So if someone's currently in a job search and, they're beating their head against the wall, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a client in this situation as well. We were just talking about this last week. And a couple of things. One is really to take the emotion out of it. We get so emotionally caught up in our job searches. And since many of my clients are lawyers, I'm able to say, look, in law school, we learn this. Reason versus emotion. Sometimes emotion works. Sometimes you need to take the emotion out of it and say, okay, I'm not going to take this personally. It's not that I've been rejected 30 times. It's that these jobs were not the right fit, or I wasn't ready, or I just screwed up. And that's fine. And you move on. And so taking the emotion out of it is really important. And reframing it, reframing your job search. Go back. Don't make any assumptions about what worked or didn't work in the past. Really think through what you can do today going forward. And Virginia, you've probably thought about this with the coaching versus therapy thing. When I work as a coach, we're all about today forward. We'll look in the past to get information and data points and unearth things and understand how we got to where we are. But, nursing your wounds doesn't advance your job search. It's helpful to
learn from it and move on. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, and I'm okay with I don't know if you agree, I'm okay with a short-term pity party. Give yourself 3 hours, don't be upset, lick your wounds, and then emotion's done. You revisited it, reframe it, and carry forward. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
That's what we're here for, right? Is to help you do that.
That's right.
Not to bring it out.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. So what words of wisdom can you share to maybe that person? I'm sure you've had clients like this who have really diverse skills. Their role can go in a number of different ways. They have a couple different options.
Right. So you've seen my book. For the people listening who haven't,
get it on Amazon.
Read it. Thank you. One of the things I talk about is understanding who you are and then mapping it to either current roles or potentially available roles in the future. Roles you could create or roles that, a company needs, but they don't yet know they need. So there's kind of current and potential roles. But if you have a very diverse skill set, the idea is to understand your strengths, but to understand them in the context of your own interests and values, your priorities, and what the market is needing from you or could need if you created, an actual need, quantified it somehow. And so it's really important to understand, people pay us because we add value, right? Not just because they feel sorry for us and want to give us a job. And I think job seekers forget that sometimes. They feel like, well, why wasn't I good enough? Well, it doesn't matter. It's not about whether you're good enough or not. It's about whether you can help them create the value they're looking to create through the role that they have either available or could create in the future. And so if you have diverse skills, really be thinking about what are the skills that you want to use? How do you want to take your career? And then how does that match up with what people will pay you for? Another line that I really like to use with people in this situation, sometimes it's applicable, is to be undecided but not confused.
Ooh,
and this is especially true. Thank you. It's especially true when you're going out for informational interviewing. So you can say, I'm undecided. I have 2 or 3 tracks that I'm dual tracking or triple tracking. Maybe I'd like to be continuing as an attorney. I'd like to be a project manager, a COO, a something else. And I'm just using obvious examples, but you can, maybe I want to continue in law, for example, or I want to go learn Python and go write code. I mean, it could be very diverse, or I want to go become a scuba diving instructor. It doesn't have to be, right? But if you're confused, bring out to your network and saying, should I stay a lawyer or should I, run a scuba shop? They're going to be like, I've got nothing for you. You've got to go to the scuba diving, shops in your area or maybe in another area and start talking to them, see what it's like, maybe shadow someone, see what it's like on a daily basis. This is what I did when I became a coach. And so you're undecided, but you're not confused.
But clear but undecided.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And I like that, figuring out what problem can I solve and what of all of these skills do I have that can help solve it. That is great advice. Thank you. If you haven't trademarked, I might use the undecided but not confused. I think that's brilliant.
I think it's my first book. But just to go to that point a little further.
Yeah.
The scuba diving, maybe you love scuba. It's like the thing that you love to do outside of your job. But owning a scuba diving shop involves scheduling, getting a dive master, getting a captain for the boat, having boats, figuring out insurance, keeping everything going. There's weather, the boat breaks down.
Sounds like you've contemplated this as a career path, no?
My son just got certified, so I'm thinking about it. I know, and is there demand in your area, and are you going to have trips? How is it all going to work? I mean, there's so much that goes into it. And when we think about our interests, we don't just think about scuba diving as an interest. You want to be an entrepreneur. You want to have a shop. You want to take people, maybe you want to do high-end trips and only take executives. That's another way to do it. But that's a market that maybe you create that wasn't there before. And there's so many ways to be thinking about it. So it's fascinating, right?
It is. It's just, to me, it makes you feel like the world really could be your oyster. You just got to be very clear about what your skills are, what the problems are you're solving, and find that intersection.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay, so I like to ask this question of all my guests because it comes up time and time again. There's all sorts of discrimination out there. Age is sort of a hot topic that my clients bring to me, but there's a lot of discrimination. What are your thoughts on the topic?
Right. And I have a chapter in Master the Interview about this. I want to say it's chapter 13, Special Considerations.
Okay.
And it's essentially this. Right. Age discrimination, any other kind of way that you might be seen as different or not a fit because of some characteristic that you have. A couple of things I would say about that. I mean, one is sometimes people are just jerks, right? I mean, you only need one job. So
right.
I actively encourage clients. I say, you can push yourself into a job where they don't want you. And maybe that makes sense for your career, or maybe they don't deserve you. And that's the way you need to think about it.
Yeah.
Do you want to be in that environment that's backwards thinking? Because if you jump into that environment, that's where you're going to be. You're going to be in a tank full of backward thinking people. So that's one thing.
Point. Yeah.
But
and that's very empowering. You don't have to be at their mercy. Yeah.
Absolutely. Just because they have money and you have services and you're trading them does not mean that they always have leverage. And even if you feel like they have leverage, you have to, because it's not an even playing field because you'd want to take any job that was available, you have to have the confidence and belief in yourself that you have something to offer. That's about your value proposition, right? What are you offering? Because if that's what you're bringing, it's a much different conversation. The other thing is part 2 of the answer is you want to be thinking about the possible objections they might have. Now, sometimes their objections are completely unreasonable. They're even illegal questions to ask. But sometimes you can be thinking, okay, so if they are discriminating against an older candidate, what are they worried about? Are they worried about me not having experience with the latest, greatest, whatever, whether it's social media or knowing how to use a computer, whatever it is, right?
Right, that you might be dated in your skills.
Your skills might be dated. You might be inflexible. You might think that you're above everybody else. They might have a young culture, and are you going to fit in? Or are you going to try to mommy or daddy everybody? And if you are, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, to be thinking about how you fit in. And then again, framing your value in the context of that. So while showing flexibility, maybe you do skydiving and you're 65 years old. I mean, there are ways, you're talking about adventure sports, but I mean, there are ways to show that you are flexible. And that, if you think might be their possible objection, could be it. And clearly, as you said to some of these other questions, there's so many other points we could go through here. But the last one I want to make on this is don't walk in with a negative attitude. Negativity kills job interviews.
Yeah, and I would say, don't walk in with preconceived notions because, and you're right, the negative attitude is one of those, and people sense that a mile away.
Right. It's like dogs smell fear.
That's right.
Can tell if you think you're overqualified or you're not, you really want a 20-something person. I don't even know why you brought me in here. Well, if you're in the interview room, then they wanted you in there probably.
That's right.
And
you can create documents that make you timeless. Nobody needs to know if we're 38 or 68 with that.
Generally.
And then,
Generally. And and there's a lot more we could say on that, but I think those are the 3 main points. Is like thinking about the right environment for you, being proactive about ready for objections and how you could overcome them, and then not having negativity.
Yeah. Skip the jerks, frame your objections, and don't walk in. Yeah. Leave the negative attitude behind. Wonderful. So what are 1 or 2 tools that you feel that a job seeker or a career changer absolutely cannot be without? What should be in their toolkit?
So I would say LinkedIn for almost everyone. There's certainly exceptions.
Who would you say are exceptions to that?
Well, so I'm linked to a lot of yoga teachers on LinkedIn, for example, but I don't know that necessarily that improves their ability to get a job teaching yoga.
Right.
And certain fields, like in the court system, a lot of people don't have profiles. Certain fields in government, although the people in high-level government that I work with are starting to really get out on LinkedIn, but they have to be careful.
With privacy concerns.
Right, or compliance, or, but to take that aside, so there's that subset of people who either LinkedIn doesn't behoove them as much because, let me phrase it this way. If your market is on LinkedIn, you should be on LinkedIn, right? So it's the most effective tool for just about every job seeker. Once in a while, there's another platform, but the idea is to be out there on the platform where you can be seen. Because being online now, if you don't have an online 24/7 presence, in many, many fields, you either don't exist, quote unquote, or you don't show the credibility that you need to both get the job and get the compensation that you're looking for. Because it really boosts your credibility as a candidate.
So know where your audience is. And to your point of, I do yoga as well. My yoga instructor colleagues, I connect with them on Instagram, and that's where they are.
Right, because that's where their market is. Because
that's where their market is.
Right. Yoga teacher on LinkedIn.
That's right. That's right.
Not
That's
where
right.
we look for yoga.
And
unless
YouTube.
You're looking for business, yoga business, but not yoga classes. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, maybe.
Okay. So LinkedIn with few exceptions. Yep. And what's number 2?
So I'm really a fan of organizing your leads in a job search.
Ooh.
I have something I've created, which I call a job search pipeline, and it's on my site. It might be under pipeline. I can look it up, or you can put it in the comments later. But actually, I can just say, if you go to my site, which is my name, MarieSegal.com, and you could put in the search box pipeline, it should come up. And so pipeline, what that is I have it organized where there's a top and a bottom. It could be 2 different spreadsheets, but the idea is you've got a set of targets and a set of connectors. And you've got your top targets listed. So you're putting the name of the person, the name of the organization, what value you add, your last date of contact with them, your next steps, and what follow-up you're ready to take, and what date. And
that's in the target section. Okay.
Yep. And then the names go down of the individuals that you're looking to connect with. And so what happens is if someone calls you that you haven't spoken to them in 3 months, you go, oh, Virginia Franco. Oh, wait, I know that name. I know I was really interested in the job at her company, but I don't remember anything about what she does or why she should care. And now she's just called me and I don't know what to say. Your pipeline, it's ready to go.
An easily searchable spreadsheet. You don't need any fancy tools for it. It sounds like it's pretty straightforward.
It absolutely. That's why I like it, because it's so straightforward. The connectors works much in the same way. Those are people like maybe Virginia, rather than being an employer, you're someone that I say, oh, she knows a lot of people and has offered to help me in my search. And so here are the different ways that, she could be connecting me. People who are allergic to Excel can do it any other way. I'm not tied to that. You can have client relationship management software on the one end, all the way down to like just a piece of paper. Or,
I was going to say pen and paper. Okay. But just some way to keep the names, the people, the players straight in your head.
And either on one page or easily accessible, because what I don't like is I have a lot of clients who say, oh, I've got all that written down. I'll say, okay, who are your top 5? And they have to go to their notebook, and on page 1 is one, and then they flip and they say, oh, on page 8, here's another one, and then page 22, and they're not counting, obviously, but they're flipping around in their notebook, and that is the time-wasting piece. It's not keeping you
ROI.
focused.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Oh, that's good stuff. Okay. So you just came out with your book. It's wonderful. You have a thriving practice. What's next for you? What do you have time to do? I should ask you.
So I'm starting to plan 2018 and thinking about it. I mean, one thing is I enjoyed this podcast and may do more writing on Forbes. You and I are on the Forbes Coaches Council, and I'd like to take advantage of the opportunity to write for them a bit more. I'm also launching a 10-week group coaching program on conducting an effective job search and launching an effective job search campaign, which I'm excited about because I haven't done a lot of group coaching.
So is that something that is now open for business, or are you still formulating the group coaching practice?
Should be ready in a couple weeks.
Okay. All right.
Yep. I don't have a link or anything.
Okay.
And the value proposition book, I keep saying I'm going to write another book. I'm not. At some point, I might turn that into an executive summary, so to speak, of that book. So that's another project that might happen. It's fun to be creative, but I also need to keep myself organized.
I know. It's a lot of things that could happen in 2018.
Oh, gosh,
thank you. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Well, Marie, thank you so much. I've learned a lot. I think that you've given some really actionable tips for people in transition. So thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You've been listening to Résumé Storyteller with Virginia Franco. To learn more about storytelling strategies to catch the eye of today's SKIM online readers, hiring and decision makers, go to www.icty.com. VirginiaFrancoResumes.com.